we've met PK, I guess, not even half a year ago, but we're really, really excited about your work. We're hoping to support it with a grants program. We're really, really, we were very excited that you came to our last Hope and Innovation workshop. That was just a few weeks ago, I guess a little over a month ago now, and really excited for what you have to share. Thank you so much for joining us. And Jan, we're running 10 minutes late with the next session, just FYI. All right, PK, thank you so much for joining. Please take it away.
Thank you all so much. It's so exciting to be here, and I'm super honored, and this is amazing, all the talks so far. So I'm going to talk about non-invasive neuro enhancement, but first I'm just going to motivate this just a little bit. So in my field of neuroimaging, one of the things that's very popular is something we call a decoding model, which essentially amounts to using some form of an AI model and applying it to, say, functional MRI data. So if you do this, you can do things like predict whether somebody believes a religious statement or an autobiographical statement. You can predict all sorts of tasks. You can predict sleep chronotype. Are you an early bird or a night owl? And also just group membership predictions, such as do you have ADHD, for example. So if you couple these models to, say, explainable AI techniques, you can actually very cautiously make some interesting inferences. But yeah, with caution, I must note that. So the problem with this is that whether you're doing brain mapping or decoding, if you're applying this to a very controlled experimental task, it's not going to reveal the computational mechanism, no matter which scale you're using. So this often answers binary questions, leading to paradigm-bound theories. But instead, we'd like to move towards more of a holistic, unified theory that will help us develop whole brain emulation techniques. So one thing that's very important is moving beyond just measuring the brain and also finding ways to ping the brain in very specific ways to help test and validate our models, ways to manipulate brain activity. So one thing you could do is, say, deep brain stimulation surgery, or you could make a neural implant of some sort, but these all involve risk. And my biggest issue with these, because I've seen it clinically with Parkinson's patients who, say, 6 months after DBS, end up having huge problems, and the dyskinesias and things like this come back because the brain is highly plastic. So it's as if you wish you put the electrode somewhere else. And so this is a big problem for implants, in my opinion, which leads me to non-invasive techniques. The nice thing about non-invasive is that you can constantly update to keep up with the brain's rewiring, all the non-stationarities in the brain. So the classic techniques, TMS, TDCS, these are really cool. We've learned a lot from these, but you can really only hit the superficial part of the gray matter, over about 5 centimeters. So you're not really getting really specific results. And this is what I think is really exciting, is ultrasound. So it turns out that that same technique that's used to image babies before they're born can also be used to modulate brain activity, and not just superficially, but deep in the brain. You don't have to show me your hands, but how many people here used a magnifying glass when they were little to burn leaves? Okay, yes, that was a fun experiment when you were little. It turns out ultrasound kind of works the same way. You focus the ultrasound beam, and it doesn't affect the brain activity in the intervening regions. It just hits the target you want. And so it's really, really elegant spatial precision, 5 millimeters. So very exciting, in my opinion. One of the coolest things out there. I get very excited about this. So it's a long time ago, going back to the 50s, people started to use ultrasound at high intensity for surgical purposes. And that was great because they didn't have to actually cut open the brain. They could just use focused ultrasound and ablate the activity. But that's not a good idea if you just want to test theories of cognitive processes. So if you operate the ultrasound at low intensity, the thermal effects are completely negligible. And so what's interesting is that there are ion channels that are sensitive to mechanical waves. And we think this is what's mediating the effects of ultrasound. So there's a bunch of technical issues that we've had to work through over the years, as this is an emerging technology, but we've solved a lot of them. And now we can do both excitation and suppression to deep brain regions, and we can use the steering technique to hit continuous depths in the brain. And one of the other things that's cool is you might wonder, did the acoustic focus actually hit the right area? You can do an ASL image and verify it. I recently used it to test this generative model I had about aphatic coupling in the brain. And it was cool because I used suppressive TUS to the corpus callosum. It caused an alpha power desynchronization, which is what the model predicted. This is work from two of my colleagues. You can use TUS to actually reduce PTSD and anxiety. And this was crazy. I was there. We've woken people out of a coma. Yeah. The family was absolutely astounded. So I think there's so much future here. There's so many unbelievable applications. We could say alter dopamine dynamics, norepinephrine, maybe increase creativity in the brain. Maybe we could increase empathic concern. And right now it's about the size of a hockey puck, but I could imagine a future where it's smaller and we have little headsets and we can dial it to whichever goal we're trying to achieve. Meditation, hyperfocus, whatever it might be. So here's just some future thoughts. In that future where we have these devices in our home, how does that affect society? Conflict resolution, couples therapy, work happiness. I think there's so many interesting ways that this might actually affect society. And this is something I put out there to you guys for fun thought experiments. And thank you so much.
I'm curious whether anyone has tested using ultrasound to do brain imaging or to do input-output from the palate, from inside the mouth, instead of on top and outside the skull. Because one of the challenges, my understanding, that people have had is just penetrating the skull with ultrasound is difficult to get really good ion granularity. So have there been attempts to enter from different angles in order to avoid skull thickness as a barrier to
That is an excellent question. I think that is the hardest challenge. The pterion, you can feel it on the sides of your brain. That's the thinnest part of the skull. So our first experiments were pretty much just coming from the pterion. But it turns out those early experiments from the 70s that showed huge drop-off, I think we should update that because I think it's not quite as bad as those say. But I do know a group that is working on the inside the mouth, basically, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think we're going to find pulse sequences that overcome that challenge.
You mentioned altering dopamine dynamics. My mind immediately went to okay, now people would kind of freely pursue wireheading, possibly ways that are not long-term sustainable. Do you have any, maybe we're jumping too far ahead, but just how do you see, consumer grade?
Yes, absolutely. We might have to set limits, okay, you've hit your dopamine limit for the day. There might be, something like this. I think finding the right balance is probably very important. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.